Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. You're watching NDTV. Congress leader Shashi Tharoor on Tuesday conceded that he was left with egg on his face in opposing India's position when the Russia-Ukraine war broke out. And he said that it was due to the policy of neutrality that was adopted by India that the country is now in a position where it can make a difference to lasting peace. Now, Dr. Tharoor had criticized India's position when Russia attacked Ukraine. He wanted India to call out Russia's aggression. But now he says that he stands corrected. Defending his statement, he also said that he spoke as an Indian, as a nationalist, and does not see politics in this. Meanwhile, the BJP has hailed Dr. Tharoor for reviewing his position, and the party has said that his honesty in praising Prime Minister Narendra Modi's diplomacy is commendable. Now, the party has also said that Prime Minister Modi now needs new haters as old rivals have become his admirers. Remember, Dr. Tharoor is not your usual parliamentarian. He is someone who has had a successful stint in UN diplomacy, and he's also the chairperson of the Parliamentary Committee on External Affairs. So for the BJP, this is validation by somebody who understands the world of diplomacy. But there's also no doubt that Dr. Tharoor's position, his remarks have put the Congress party in an awkward position. Remember, he has praised Prime Minister Narendra Modi's diplomacy, his oratory skills in the past, or even his initiatives such as Swachh Bharat. He has also lauded Kerala's ruling party, the LDF government's work when it comes to promoting the startup economy. Now, we all know matters of national interest are above domestic politics, and diplomacy needs nuance and context. But all of this is also happening when Dr. Tharoor, a four-term MP from Thiruvananthapuram in Kerala, is also fighting for his place in Kerala politics that already has leaders such as K.C. Venugopal, Ramesh Chennithala and V.D. Satishan. So the question we ask tonight, shouldn't it be okay for political rivals to at least once in a while acknowledge each other's achievements, because that's what statesmen are supposed to do? Or has this also become a way for some to project one's angst with one's own party? We'll discuss all of this tonight with a panel of esteemed guests. And joining me now is Shehzad Poonawalla, who's the national spokesperson of the BJP. We have Amitabh Tiwari, who's a political strategist. We have Arun Mohan Sukumar, who's an assistant professor at Ashoka University. He's also a former aide to Dr. Tharoor. He's also an author. We also have Manju Seth, who's a former ambassador, and Kapil Madan, who's a Congress supporter. Thank you all of you for joining me on this broadcast. Arun, to you first. You are an author. You have worked closely with Dr. Tharoor. Like I said, Dr. Tharoor is not a regular MP. He's also much more qualified. And it's completely okay for individuals to review their stated positions when more facts come to light. In that context, how do you see the recent political war between the BJP and Congress, specifically in Kerala? Do you think that this strengthens the brand of politics that Dr. Tharoor represents, or do you think it weakens it?
Thanks, Fasda. I think context obviously matters in politics. The way, the timing of certain comments by anybody, regardless of whether it's Shashi or somebody else, obviously matters. You can't take that in isolation. First of all, I think the comments made by Shashi are important. As you said, he's not just a prominent member of the opposition. He's also the chairperson of the Parliamentary Standing Committee on External Affairs. And he has said this at the Raisina dialogue, the fact that the Indian position and the foreign policy conceived and articulated by Prime Minister Modi and Dr. Jaishankar needs to be lauded. And he has said this in front of, I think, 10 to 15 foreign ministers were present today at the Raisina dialogue. And I am pretty sure, having known Shashi for the time that I have, that he would make these comments mindful not just of the forum in which he has participated in, but also his position as the chairperson of a committee that stands pretty high in the parliamentary hierarchy. The position, therefore, I think he has articulated it quite clearly. But I do want to say that the position is not particularly controversial. If you look at the position of the Congress as a party and as articulated by its leader, Mr. Rahul Gandhi, I think Mr. Gandhi is on the record, I think in 2023 or even as late as last year, when he said that there is nothing that he would do different from the Prime Minister's current trajectory of foreign policy that is any different on Russia. In fact, he has said this a couple of times. So to say perhaps that Dr. Tharoor is articulating a very controversial position, something that is very different from the party's own line, is not at all true. In fact, foreign policy is an issue where the Congress and the BJP, in fact, see eye to eye on many issues. So I wouldn't say it's not controversial, but it's actually good to see Dr. Tharoor come out and say it in a very clear manner.
Shehzad, while I completely understand that this praise from Dr. Tharoor is of a lot of value to the BJP considering his experience, if you look at his interviews in the past, and I was going through them today, he has pointed fingers at the way institutions are being run. He has steadfastly talked about his commitment to the Congress party's ideology. He's talked about how certain laws like UAPA have also altered the spirit of the constitution. Yes, I know that he has also praised Narendra Modi several times, the Prime Minister in the past. So, he's been a critique of the BJP who once in a while also praises the BJP, especially the Prime Minister. Isn't it a good thing that the Congress party gives space to people like him?
First of all, Vasudha, if I were to borrow from the thesaurus of Dr. Tharoor, I would describe this situation as follows. The imbroglio enveloping Shashi Tharoor and the Congress party manifests a Gordian knot of internecine discord, whereas perspicuous penchant for extolling adversaries precipitates a cacophony of opprobrium amongst provincial satraps who decry his peripatetic proclivities as an egregious affront to his party's monolithic ethos, thereby exacerbating a labyrinthine conundrum of factional antipathy and ideological dissonance. So this is in his own words. Frankly, it is not the BJP that needs to lap up or to criticize Dr. Tharoor. I think that there should be space for bipartisanship, especially on issues of foreign policy, and whoever it may be, I would always welcome anybody putting India first. But the problem, Vasudha, is that here are statements of the Congress leaders themselves on Dr. Tharoor. First, Kodaikunal Suresh calls Tharoor a guest artist and an immature politician. Mr. Mullapalli Ramachandran, he calls Mr. Tharoor somebody who is immature. Mr. Satisan says that he's an inflated balloon. Mr. Sudhakaran and others call him almost a gaddar in the party, including Mr. Ramesh Chennithala. So it is the Congress leaders who don't trust Dr. Tharoor's motivations and intentions, not the BJP. By the way, the BJP is all for everybody putting India first. It is not just Dr. Tharoor. In fact, even Manmohan Singh ji, in an interview to the Indian Express, had said that he considers the position taken by the Modi government as something that has benefited our national policy. Now, the point is only this. We don't need Dr. Tharoor cheering up our foreign policy. It is there for everyone to see. On the one hand, we are leading the Quad. We are also in SCO. We are buying S-400s. We are buying cheap oil from Russia. And on the other hand, we have evaded the sanctions. We've also got the drones from America, which they only sell to NATO nations. On the one hand, we are hugging Putin. On the other hand, we are counseling Zelensky. So India's position has grown, and that can be seen by everybody. But here is what I'm saying. The Congress today has become so cynical, and it has made Modi Virod so important that it doesn't mind descending into Bharat Virod. Who's opposed UCC? Who's opposed GST? Who's opposed Aadhaar? Who's opposed things that they have started first, including on foreign policy or on domestic policy? They even opposed the digital payments and UPI system. So the question is that the Congress party needs to learn a trick or two from Mr. Tharoor, and things which are right in the national interest should be lauded and complimented,
not
even if it is being done
everything that the Prime Minister does. But Shehzad, tell me one thing, it's politics, and we know that while there's a PM's Memorial Museum in New Delhi, the BJP leadership also often criticizes the Gandhis, in fact many of the former Prime Ministers. So why would you expect the Congress party to behave differently?
Look, political personalities are not above political scrutiny. So we will definitely scrutinize Nehru, we will definitely scrutinize Indira Gandhi. But the fact of the matter is that when Indira Gandhi gave a befitting reply, under her leadership, the army gave a befitting reply to Pakistan in 1971, did Vajpayee ji not praise her? Although he did not use the terminology Durga, etc. But he did praise her. We did stand by the government. It was in fact Atal Bihari Vajpayee who went and led the delegation sent by Narasimha Rao to United Nations to fight for India's case on Kashmir. So that is the level of bipartisanship we have shown when we are in opposition. We go by the concept in Mahabharata that the Pandavas and Kauravas fight each other against themselves, but when there is an external threat, we are all together, we are 105. Panchadik Shatam. So therefore, that is the principle we operate on. But take a position of the Congress party. The Congress party is Praveen Chakravarti, by the way, who's very close to Rahul, said quote unquote that we should not buy cheaper oil from Russia. Now imagine the impact it would have had on our economy. Secondly, would we have the leverage to tell Russia to adhere to the fact that it is the age of Buddha, not age of youth? You just heard the Poland deputy foreign minister come out and say how Prime Minister Modi and the Indian government was able to weigh in on Russians to not use nuclear weapons. So I think that the instant criticism, or the criticism for the sake of criticism, which Congress unusually indulges in just because they hate Modi, that should stop now.
Okay. Arun Mohan Sukumar, before I go to others, in an earlier interview, Dr. Tharoor also says that his remarks have largely generated positive response comes from people, but the same can't be said about the party. So isn't it possible, Arun, for all of us to read between the lines and say that this is also his angst, with respect to the Congress party that's coming out, because this is not the first time that he has praised the Prime Minister?
Vasudha, I think I speak for a lot of well-wishers and friends of Dr. Tharoor when we say that sometimes we feel that a person of his stature and his abilities is not, fully utilized within the party. But to his credit, I've never heard Dr. Tharoor say this, even in private correspondence. And I'm pretty sure the occasion in which he made these comments on Prime Minister Modi's foreign policy and the statement that he made is clearly indicative of his own thinking. I do not knowing him, I don't think he would have thought twice about how this statement fits into the political context and all the speculation surrounding him. In fact, I feel that his shortcoming as a politician is sometimes he does not second guess himself, and he does say things that to him seem intellectually honest and correct. And I think his position on the Ukraine conflict has undergone a change. He was candid enough to admit that. The truth is, as I just said, that the Congress party too has endorsed that line a long time ago. So if your question is that if Dr. Tharoor should have thought about these comments and how they play into a speculative media debate, or for that matter, a political debate, he probably should have. But he, I think, is somebody who believes in this age-old motto that politics stops at the water's edge. And, I think all of us and all political representatives should also perhaps follow that.
Okay. Amitabh Tiwari, how do you see the political play out of this? Because Dr. Tharoor also, I understand, is not a very conventional politician. We also need people like him because, he's also a mass leader. At the end of the day, he's winning from Thiruvananthapuram, which is one of the important cities in the country. So clearly, he's not just, your typical Rajya Sabha member. He is winning his seat. He's a four-term MP. He speaks to his people. He speaks for his people. And he also has experience and qualifications. How do you read his politics, and how do you see the fallout of this episode?
Clearly, he has been a key member of Congress party from Kerala, and Kerala is one of the few states where Congress has been performing well in the Lok Sabha elections in the recent past. See, essentially, there is a South African famous professor of political science who says that the opposition has three roles to play. While the opposition and the opposition parties clearly are opposing the BJP government or the government in power on issues, apart from opposing, he says that they need to provide alternative solutions to the problems, and they also need to acknowledge when the government is doing good work and cooperate with the government on issues of national importance. So clearly, Mr. Tharoor's statement clearly aligns with point number 3. When the government is doing good work, he is acknowledging that fact that that should not be seen as anti-party activity by Congress or by any other party when a leader of his stature makes such a statement. Now, because there have been media speculation that he is not happy with his role in the Congress party and he needs perhaps a more proactive role in state politics, and we see that the state elections are due in next year, where perhaps he might have ambitions to be the chief ministerial face of the Congress party, as Mr. Arun is saying that some of his supporters feel that probably he has not got his due in the Congress party. So in this context, and the fact that the BJP has picked this up, saying that even foes are becoming friends and even opposition leaders are now turning into fans of Modi, this could create some discomfort within the Congress top leadership at this point, and we'll have to see how they tackle this issue going forward.
Okay, Kapil Madan, why do a lot of people in the Congress party feel that they're not being given their due? And this is despite the Congress party doing well in 2024 Lok Sabha elections, getting about 99 seats. We've seen similar statements come in the past from even Jyotiraditya Scindia and several others. Does the party need to review its working and its approach towards, people like Shashi Tharoor, who clearly are an asset to the party?
So let me first respond to my good friend Shahzad. I'm meeting him after so long. In Mr. Shashi Tharoor's word, I would, how would have he described Mr. Poonawalla? One cannot help but marvel at the audacity with which Shehzad derides the very action they once endorsed, all while cloaking his inconsistency in the grasp of newly found wisdom. What I'm trying to say here is that Shehzad has been the staunch person who has opposed BJP tooth and nail. And let me just give you a few examples. I don't want to make personal here. I will talk about the issues. You may recall the Prime Minister now says very loudly, in fact, Shehzad also says very loudly that the government is supporting about 80 crores citizens by giving them free ration. Just to take you down the memory lane, this is happening basis a Food Security Act, which was opposed by the BJP government. Now the BJP government, takes this as a medal.
Okay, Kapil, you'll have to talk about Dr. Tharoor and all those other people who feel that they are being left out.
I will talk about Mr. Tharoor, and I will talk about the, see, in hindsight, of course, you analyze what you have said so far, and sometimes your analysis, your viewpoints, doesn't appears to be a correct viewpoint, and that happens every time. It happens with, everyone in every, political space, in every, institutional space. It happens. You have a different political thought, and in hindsight, you then analyze what you said in the past was correct or not. And in fact, I would agree with a person who spoke, who has also clarified that it was not the Congress government's official stand, wherein they never criticize the Modi government insofar as the stance they have taken insofar as this Russia and Ukraine war is concerned. So they were pretty much aligned with what the government have done, how they have responded in that particular situation. So making an issue out of a statement made by Dr. Tharoor is, I think, it's a non-issue.
Okay, Shehzad, would you like to respond to that? Is the BJP gloating too much, because Dr. Tharoor has praised you, and of course he's also been a critic of your party. So is it okay for rivals to just,
there has been change of heart in Shehzad also. There has been change of heart in Shehzad also.
First of all, Kapil is making a self-defeating argument. The very fact that for 10 years I was in the Congress, criticized BJP and Prime Minister Modi, yet on the basis of talent, they were able to give me a space and forgive me for the statements I made, shows that they are more tolerant. And here is a Mr. Tharoor who wins elections for you, the few that can win an election in your party anymore, says the right thing for the nation, doesn't say anything against the Congress, and yet you are so intolerant towards him. It actually proves my point that Vasudha, the BJP is a more tolerant and liberal and inclusive platform. The Congress isn't, because unless you're doing Parivar Bhakti there, no matter how much talent or merit you have, you will be seen as an enemy of the state. Point
Dr.
number
Tharoor
two, it is not factually correct when Kapil...
he contested an election, organizational election. He has been speaking about Mr. Modi's oratory skills. So clearly there is space for people like him in the Congress party, which is something that is nice, isn't it?
Well, if there is that space, then maybe Rahul Gandhi should come out and say to his colleagues, that the Kerala Congress colleagues in particular, who come out and say that Mr. Tharoor is a party ka gaddar, inflated balloon, immature, somebody who's demotivating the cadre. He should come out and take a stand. Mr. Khadge should come out and take a stand. In fact, Mr. Tharoor himself lamented as to how the electoral process, for whatever it was worth, was actually biased in favor of the candidate the Gandhis were betting on, that was Mr. Khadge. So let's not go down that lane. The point is that if you are truly democratic, then stand by Mr. Tharoor, who gets attacked by your own party leadership. Point one. Point two, it is not true that the Congress party has by and large aligned itself on the government's position on Ukraine and Russia. In fact, Jairam Ramesh, when Prime Minister went to both Moscow and Kiev, at that time he made the most ridiculous, immature comments. Other party leaders like Manish Tiwari also wanted us to vote in United Nations against Russia. So all of these statements are on record. You can't run away from that. And
I'll have to go to Manju Seth now. Manju Seth, ma'am, a lot has happened in this world in the last 2 years. We know that Trump has taken over. There's been a lot of changes in the world. Also, the shortages with respect to fuel and food and fertilizer, weakening of NATO forces. What do you think really made Dr. Tharoor change his position? And have you seen precedents of something like this, political rivals appreciating each other when it comes to diplomatic positioning? Or is it because of the times that we live in that this seems quite new to us?
Absolutely, you're right, Vasundhara. It is not something entirely new, especially on foreign policy. We have seen that there's always been a lot of support from the opposition parties whenever the government in power takes a policy decision or a foreign policy approach to any issue. But unfortunately, I think these days, at times, as you said, we live in, things are not as as they were. And definitely, everyone should welcome Dr. Shashi Tharoor's statement, because it's based on facts, and as he himself said, that events have certainly validated India's approach, the current approach. I mean, the current situation where the war is almost likely to come to an end, and India might be able to help out in some way, because definitely, and we have, I think, been speaking to both leaders, both President Trump and President Zelensky, and I think because of the way the events have unfolded, Dr. Tharoor has come out with this clear support for the Prime Minister's position, for India's position, let me put it that way. And I think it is something which everyone should really appreciate. And I'm not sure it should be allowed to be politicized, because it is something which is in the country's interest.
Okay.
And
last word from Arun
it
Mohan
has
Sukumar.
been.
Arun, how do you see this play out in Kerala politics, your home state? Because, there's something very unique about Dr. Tharoor. I saw articles where Prakash Karat has clarified that he's not joining the left, and there is also BJP saying that, no, he's not joining us. So clearly, two ends of political spectrum. There's also something that makes him acceptable in certain ways. It's because of his views. And how do you see this controversy playing out in Kerala? How are voters in Kerala going to view this?
Absolutely. I think you hit the nail on the head, Vasudha, and I'm here speaking simply as a long-time resident, as somebody who hails from Trivandrum, his home constituency, which is also the reason why I got to know Shashi in the first place. There is wide acceptability for him. He is widely respected, not just as a political candidate, as a member of a well-established political institution, but he's widely respected as a scholar and UN diplomat for the longest period of his time in professional service. I think, I don't know whether Kerala is unique or any other state. I can only imagine that any state would love to have Dr. Tharoor as a candidate representing them in forums like the Lok Sabha or the Rajya Sabha. Certainly, speaking to the politics that you mentioned, I believe, I'm no great political analyst, but I certainly believe that he has wide support among sections of the population. In fact, I can tell you an anecdote. You mentioned that I was a former aide to Dr. Tharoor. I met Shashi while he was on the campaign in the 2019 elections in Trivandrum, and on a whim, I decided to join him. And I spent the entirety of the campaign volunteering for him. And throughout the course of the campaign, I could see people coming to him, and they were clearly, they were swayed towards him, they were supporting him because of his candidature. I don't know whether a party member supporting, representing the Indian National Congress would have won the city. And as you know, that is a heavily contested constituency these days. So clearly people are voted, are attracted to him for his stage.
Okay, one of the most closely watched elections in Thiruvananthapuram. Thank you all of you for joining me on this broadcast. The BJP today, of course, has had a field day in taunting the Congress party after its MP, Shashi Tharoor, said that he was left with an egg on his face for opposing India's neutral position towards Ukraine-Russia war, saying that it will leave Rahul Gandhi red-faced. The BJP also says that it's good to see Congress leaders acknowledging Prime Minister Narendra Modi's diplomacy, but of course, with elections in Kerala just a year away, there is more action expected in the state. But that is for later. With that, it's a wrap of the show. More news and updates on the other side.